Thank you very much for clicking on to this oil painting time-lapse video of a visionary portrait painting painted on a timber artist's palette. I'll be talking a little bit about my painting process as well as giving you some really important color tips later on in this video. These are the colors I'll be using. I have absolutely no idea what I'm going to be doing in the background for this particular painting. I'm just putting a grey placeholder for the time being. Again, just putting in blocks of solid colors. As I've mentioned in previous oil painting time-lapse videos on this channel, the way that I paint is often a bit different to the way painting is taught in most art schools, but I did teach hundreds if not thousands of students to paint in this layered method of painting in the art school that I had for over 20 years. The colors I usually use for lighter skin tones is either a mix of yellow ochre, burnt sienna and titanium white, or else I use flesh tint, Naples yellow hue paints with white. I mostly use burnt sienna and burnt umber and white for darker skin tones. Of course, yellow ochre and burnt sienna are far more popular paints for general use than flesh tint and Naples yellow hue. Also, the flesh tint paint seems to vary a lot between different brands. The painting often doesn't look very good at this stage, and I would discourage people from showing their paintings at this stage to critical friends or family members. In this particular case, I used this stencil to help me with the fabric patterns. I just used it as a starting point because the fabric eventually ended up looking nothing like the stencil. All these paintings on artists' palettes will be available for sale with a percentage of the proceeds going to charity. So I'm now defining more of the features and the shadows in the face. Keep in mind that the layer of paint underneath is now dry. I'm using a technique called dry brushing to add highlights and shadows. I will be revisiting this series and will be doing some more oil painting on artists' palettes at a later date in the future. But the next series I'm doing on this channel will be a range of magical creatures painted in gouache paint, each with a color challenge, so be sure to check that out. There will be several examples in this painting time-lapse of doodling. Practicing simple and spontaneous doodling can help you to add creative elements to your paintings. I also end up adding a bunch of doodling to the background later in this video and am now doodling with this fabric pattern. Again, the underneath paint on this raven is now dry and I'm adding details with wet paint on the top. Ravens are often seen as messengers between worlds in many spiritual traditions. In Celtic and Norse mythology, they are symbols of wisdom, transformation and prophecy, believed to carry messages from the divine or spirit world. Their black feathers and mysterious intelligence apparently make them guardians of secrets and guides for insights. reminding us to pay attention to signs and intuition in our own lives. In this case, I could see that a darker tone was needed in the background to bring the figure forward. I eventually decided to go through my stencils for some inspiration for the background and decided to continue with the celestial cosmic theme that was created in the previous paintings in this series on this channel. So what I ended up doing in the background here is another example of doodling an abstract cosmic scene. I really like to combine abstract designs with more realistic painting. It gives a nice creative balance. I'm just having fun with the painting and playing around here to see what happens. As I mentioned prior, I didn't know what I was going to do with the background when I started, and have also done paintings where I have painted the background first and didn't know what I was going to do with the foreground. I have only ever done this with oil paintings, and you could also do this with acrylic because they are both such forgiving mediums, especially oil paint. I would, however, never do this with a medium such as watercolor, where I usually have at least 70 to 90% of the design complete prior to starting. With oil painting, you can really make things up as you go along. And if I don't like the background here, I can just paint over it and do it again. Later on, I will do some glazes on the figure to bring her up again, so she's not so lost in the busy background. But before I show you that, plus show you the final painting, I will just show you those important color tips that I promised you earlier. So this is a very, very important picture for artists. Do you see that middle grey bar? It's actually the same color all the way, but it appears lighter when it is next to the dark colors and appears darker when it is next to the light colors. So colors in general can appear lighter or darker depending on the tones they are surrounded by. This is why I use a grey painting palette where possible, and sometimes start oil and acrylic paintings with a mid-tone grey colour base. Depending on the strength of the colour in the paints used, to create a mid-tone grey, one often uses about 15 to 20% black and about 75 to 80% white paint. This is actually a photography grey card, which is a mid-tone color, which photographers use to establish their values or tones in photography. It's also quite useful for artists. Now I'm adding the glazes, which are transparent paints over dry detail. Even the white that I use here is transparent white. Before I show you the final painting, here's a quick look at the color palette I used in this painting in case you'd like to use it for one of your own paintings. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you again in the next video.